Hi, I'm Liz. Carlos.
Qué
Liz,
gusto.
un placer. Muchísimas gracias por hacer tiempo para reunirse con
Con
nosotros.
muchísimo gusto.
Mr. President, I believe passionately in your vision.
Carlos Gutiérrez was the CEO of Kellogg's and later Commerce Secretary under George W. Bush. He supported U.S. sanctions and regime change in Cuba.
The administration of President Bush is committed to accompany Cubans through a transition to political and economic freedom.
But Gutierrez had a change of heart after Obama announced the new opening with Cuba.
President Obama makes history transforming U.S. policy toward Cuba. He's also gaining new fans among Cuban Americans.
I've been a Republican all my life until now. I'm an independent. And that happened when Trump became president. I grew up in a household which was very conservative. My father was very against the revolution. And I inherited talking points from my father. But I've had an obsession with Cuba. I have read everything, pro, con, you name it. So when President Obama decided to normalize, that's when I said, I'm getting involved. This is my opportunity to make a shift. I lost 95% of my friends in Miami. Yes, but I would do it again.
Why did you lose your friends?
Because I decided to go to Cuba, speak out against the embargo, speak in favor of what was happening in Cuba, speak in favor of normalization. I am so glad I did. I would do it again. I became the chairman of the U.S.-Cuba Business Council, the Chamber of Commerce. And I think I went down 15 times. And I loved every single time.
I just want to know about how did you get involved in politics?
I met President Bush in 1998, so I was never involved. I was in somewhere in the world working for Kellogg's. Finally, I saw him in 2004, I think it was, and he offered me a job. I got involved almost by accident.
United States have been doing business with Cuba at that time?
No. It was some food products, some medicines, but the embargo was very tight, very strong. It was a hardline administration. And I have to admit, I used hardline rhetoric.
When did you shift?
I have been shifting for 40 years. So when Obama announced normalization, that was it. I wrote an op-ed in the New York Times. I was able to announce I have changed. I was always thinking about Cuba. So when the moment came, it was easy. It was easy to say, look, I've been thinking about it. I've thought about it. I don't need to think about it anymore. I want to get involved. So I went down the first time was when Kerry opened the embassy. I'm very glad that they accepted me in because I was Republican, hardliner. I didn't know if I was going to feel anger, sad. I felt joy. Everyone was going to Cuba. Hotels, manufacturing, tractor manufacturing. Everyone wanted to be in Cuba. People were buying and selling homes. Restaurants, paladares. I remember there was some stores for pets, barbershops.
Yeah, but now it's pretty tough for private business to doing business. They can't access to the raw materials that they need. They can't expand their business because they have a lack of capital. And they can't apply to a fund here in the United States or international because they are Cubans.
They can't fly here anymore to get raw materials.
They can have a U.S. visa for business anymore. Before they have like a 5 years visa, and now that's gone. So can you explain how we went from Obama era until now?
Obama was very criticized by Republicans in general, but in Miami, they hated him. The talking point is, you see, it didn't work. That's not true. I was there. It was a tremendous success, not just business, but people making friends. And people seeing, hey, Cubans aren't too bad, and Cubans say, hey, Americans are pretty nice people. Relationships, cultural groups, people working in health laboratories, just normalizing their relationship. That couldn't be stopped. They criticized it, you should see what they said about me, but I would do it again.
I don't know. What did they say?
Oh, they said I was a traitor. And Cubans, they could say a lot of things.
Yeah, I know.
About my family and everything. But Trump came in and Trump wanted to win the state of Florida.
But he's a businessman like you. He's a Republican like you.
But he became a politician. And in order to win, he needed Florida.
Can you explain how the U.S. sanctions towards Cuba hurts the U.S. business enterprise that want to do business there?
There are agricultural businesses who would love to do business in Cuba. Food, medicine, any kind of business, anything that can help the economy and that there's demand for. And Cuba is one of the most beautiful places in the world. The tourism could be just unbelievable.
But the United States citizens can travel freely to Cuba, so...
And they took out cruise ships. It was extreme. It was sad not just for people here, it was sad for Cubans, people in Cuba.
Yeah.
That's what I worry about.
And what's happened now with Biden administration?
Nothing. We think that the U.S. sometimes is Miami. No, there are people all over this country who want to see better relations with Cuba. Florida used to be what they call a swing state. You can go blue or red. Florida is red. Democrats have lost Florida.
So why don't do it now if they don't get in Florida anyway?
That's true. It would help them in other areas. Chamber of Commerce, big business. They want to lift the embargo.
And they don't have any power in the Capitol Hill?
Cuba's different.
Why is so different? I want to understand that.
The embargo, Helms-Burton, is a law. So if you want to change it, you have to get the votes in Congress. And that's never been done. The members of Congress who are in favor of the hard line, in favor of the embargo, say, look, I will vote in favor of whatever you want, but just leave Cuba alone. I vote for your bill if you do vote for mine. There's never been an embargo 62 years, anywhere. Cuba has been unique.
How did people, these Cuban Americans, have become so powerful in the Congress?
Today, Cubans run Miami. They have a lot of money and they're engaged. The average American, let's open up Cuba. But they don't wake up every morning and say, what are we going to do today? It's intensity.
Where this intensity, this strong feeling about Cuba come from? Because Marco Rubio wasn't born in Cuba, but Menendez wasn't born in Cuba either.
It's a bit of an inherited point of view. I've been going to China for 30 years. When Deng Xiaoping announced that China was going to open up, the first people to go back to invest were the Chinese who had left. Why? Because China's their country, because that's where their ancestors are from. That's where they were born. There's a link that is bigger than politics. That's not the nature of Cubans. I sometimes wonder, what do they think is going to happen? Is the policy to see blood on the streets?
I hope not.
Or is there a feeling that, we're going to go back to our house and we're just going to live the way we did? That's science fiction. I think at this point it's just revenge. It's we're going to get back. People have to understand, accept reality as it is. Cuba's not going to go back.
Did you think that the new generations think different?
Some do. We've always felt that the new generations will be the ones who will want to take the embargo away. New generations do go to Cuba more. Many of them have told me, look, I had to wait for my grandfather to die. So I do think that there are more young Cuban Americans who are in favor of normalization with Cuba, but not as many as needed.
During the Obama era, there were a lot of U.S. entrepreneurs, private business, like going there doing business. Why they are not doing any lobby right now.
It was lobbying. A lot of it was the Chamber of Commerce, but they were very careful. So I would call a bank and I'd say, hey, why don't you do business in Cuba? They say, we would love to be able to, but we can't because we don't want to be criticized. We have business in Florida. In many cases, people were in favor, but they didn't want to be exposed. But that just shows the grip that the hard line has over the politics. We need to expand the number of people who support. Besides people who support today, we need new people.
How we do that?
Well, one thing that helped was all the people who went down for the first time. They realized this embargo is crazy. It is crazy and it's hurting the Cuban people. So what bothers me is when somebody says, oh, we have the embargo because we want to help the Cuban people. Go down to Havana, stand in line with them, and tell me you're helping them.
When Trump arrived to the White House, the people in the Chamber of Commerce didn't do nothing in order to stop the policy?
Tried. The Chamber of Commerce tried, but you know what happened is as soon as things change and there's a new policy, and if you want to be in with the administration, a lot of people went underground. A lot of people who were very involved in Cuba all of a sudden disappeared because it was politically risky. What Obama did is he gave people cover, and that gave people courage. As soon as it went back, then people said, I'm just not going to risk it. There's some who still will come to meetings, but we used to call meetings with business people and get 40 CEOs. Today it's very hard to get 2 or 3.
It's shocking to me because I suppose that these people that have a business mentality, so they want to do business.
It was disappointing because the White House wouldn't listen. In the Congress, nobody wanted to take on the White House with an issue that perhaps wasn't their number one issue.
Biden said that the best ambassadors to define the Cuban policy was Cuban Americans. Who are the Cuban Americans that by the administration have been listened so far?
Too many people who are in favor of lifting the embargo still go to Cuba to criticize, still go to Cuba to point things out. And you can't have it both ways. If you want to lift the embargo so that the government falls, it's not going to work because the government knows that the reason you're doing it is so the government falls. It has to be done for the right reasons. And the right reasons are, let's help the Cuban people, let's help the Cuban economy, and with time, people want them to change politically, that's their decision. And maybe with time they will.
Did you have the opportunity to speak with someone by the administration?
I've spoken with people around him. He wouldn't take the risk. That's the way he is. He's a cautious politician.
Yeah, we don't need that in Cuba. We need the opposite. When the Obama administration opened the relationship with Cuba, a lot of businesses was earning money with Cuba. Who is earning money now?
I think some European firms are making money. Italians, Chinese, Koreans, who are selling trucks and selling buses and tractors. But American businesses didn't have the time.
Are people getting money out of the embargo?
It's a very good question. I think there are people who make a living from the embargo. So their embargoes are a cause. Their cause gives them something to do, a job. So yeah, there are organizations who live because of the embargo. Politicians gain power, influence by supporting the embargo.
When Biden said that he can't do nothing because he's reviewing the policy towards Cuba, is that true? That is something that he really can do now?
By now, he has had enough time. It's classic, create a commission, have a study group, and then they come back in 9 months and it has to be reviewed, and it's a way of buying time. But by now, he could do things. The president has the power, the authority to do it through regulation. Biden needs to say, I am going to pick up where Obama left off.